All right. Good morning, everyone. My name's Jeff Jepson. I'm a senior air quality specialist in the compliance branch of the Air Quality Management Division of Northern Nevada Public Health. Today, we are hosting a webinar on air quality requirements for gasoline dispensing facilities in Washoe County. This is not a revision or an update to the District Board of Health regulations governing air quality management for gasoline dispensing facilities. The purpose of this webinar is to provide compliance assistance for the existing regulations and current permit holders. The webinar will consist of an approximately 30-minute presentation, followed by a question and answer period and opportunity for discussion. The presentation will be recorded. If you drop out early, the AQMD plans to make the presentation recording available as a resource on the AQMD website. All attendees' microphones are currently muted. If you have a question or comment, please use the raise hand function and you will be unmuted after the presentation. You can also type any questions into the chat. Please be respectful with any information added to the chat and any questions or comments. Any attendee who does not abide by Northern Nevada Public Health's customer conduct policy may be ejected from the webinar. With those items said, I will turn things over to our air quality specialist, Alex Messenger-Patton, who will be making the presentation. Thank you for your interest and participation.
Hello, everyone. As Jeff said, my name is Alex Messenger-Patton, and I'll be giving this compliance assistance workshop today, going over gasoline dispensing facilities. Here's our agenda quickly. Do a brief summary of the Air Quality Management Division, touch on applicable federal and local regulations, go over the health and ecological effects of gasoline, aka why it's regulated, the vapor recovery cycle, and an overview of a compliance inspection. So the Air Quality Mission Statement. Air Quality Management Division is dedicated to the protection of air quality and the safeguard of public health for all of Washoe County through the development and implementation of effective programs and regulations while supporting economic growth, community partnerships, and environmental justice. And how we go about that is our monitoring team measures and records air pollution levels. The planning team compares that data with the EPA standards and works with our permitting team to develop and implement strategies to improve and/or maintain our air quality. And the compliance team seeks to ensure those strategies are being followed. Three main categories of compliance inspections. We have asbestos abatement and demolitions, dust control, and stationary sources. And then gasoline dispensing facilities fall into stationary sources, along with surface coating, like automotive spray booths, abrasive blasting, emergency power generators, fuel burning, and various manufacturing. A permit to operate is required for all sources located within Washoe County that emits an air pollutants and has a potential to emit equal to or greater of the threshold shown on this table. This figure is available on our website, ourcleanair.com. A permit is also required by rule for certain equipment that is installed and operating regardless of their potential to emit. This equipment would be a spray painting booth or gasoline dispensing and storage equipment. And for gasoline dispensing facilities, our main criteria pollutant of concern is volatile organic compounds. Here are our federal regulations, 40 CFR Part 63, Subpart 6C, National Emission Standards for Hazardous Air Pollutants for source category gasoline dispensing facilities. And then the NPH AQMD is a delegate agency of the EPA, and therefore we have the responsibility to enforce those regulations locally. And our local regulations, DBOH 040.080 for gasoline dispensing facilities. These regulations are based on the local or the federal regulations. The purpose is to control and reduce emissions of volatile organic compounds from the sale and distribution of gasoline by requiring control of gasoline vapors during the transfer and storage into stationary containers and enhanced vapor recovery. This applies to all gasoline dispensing facilities within the county, and that is private and public stations. Some private facilities would be like a rental car company's on-site gas station, a private above ground tank for a company's fleet vehicles, or a lot of the golf courses around here have their own private gas tanks that they use at their maintenance facilities. Moving on to the health and ecological effects, looking at the volatile organic compounds first. These are known human carcinogens that react with nitrogen oxides in the presence of sunlight to form ground level ozone. Many VOCs are considered hazardous air pollutants by the EPA. And the main VOC of concern from gasoline is benzene. We also have toluene, xylene, ethylbenzene, alkanes, and olefins. We have a graphic here showing how nitrous oxides and VOCs from man-made and natural sources and combine in the presence of sunlight to form ozone, known as O3. And the health and ecological effects of ground level ozone, that is defined as a criteria air pollutant by the EPA and has nationwide limits set by the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. It's part of a region's air quality index score. It's a component of smog. For animals, ground level ozone can cause respiratory irritation, especially for people with asthma, COPD, and respiratory conditions. For plants, this can cause oxidative damage, interrupting nutrient and photosynthesis cycles, and reducing crop yields. Moving on to gasoline dispensing facilities themselves. This is just kind of an overview showing the fuel truck on the right there. It loads into the underground fuel tanks, and then those go over to the dispensers where customer comes up and refills their vehicle. Have kind of a cutaway here. I'm showing the liquid gas and vapor flow at a gas station. And the liquid is pumped from the fuel truck into the tank, underground tank, and then into the customer's car via the dispenser. And then if they have it on site, the vapors are drawn from the customer's car into the underground tank, and from there into the fuel truck, which are then taken off to a transfer station. And I'll go over what the phase 1 and phase 2 controls are shortly. So here's the transfer station. For us locally here, this is over by the Nugget in Sparks. This is like a gas station for fuel trucks, and in reverse, the trucks pull up. They're loaded with liquid fuel that gets delivered to the gas stations, and then the vapors that the trucks collect from the gas stations are pumped out and either processed on site or burned off. So on our compliance inspections, we like to do these unannounced so we can see how a facility is operating under standard conditions. We always try to introduce ourselves to the staff and make note of who we talk to for documentation purposes. Dispensing operations do not need to stop while we do our inspections. We'll go over the equipment that's going to be inspected, ask for any required documentation, then we'll conduct our inspection, make note of any observations, and record any issues. We'll go over those issues with staff and discuss any timelines to correct those issues. And then we'll set a date for making your repairs, getting any testing done, and then conduct any follow-up inspections if needed. Some of our record-keeping requirements. Any change of ownership will void the permit to operate, and you may need to cease dispensing operations because of that. This comes up every once in a while, so just please be aware of it. Reach out to us if you're going to be buying a gas station. We'll request to see the current permit to operate. I have an example one here on the slide there, but we do want to see all pages of it. Often this is not on site or only the front pages there. We want to know of any changes to the permanently installed equipment, such as the gas tank, gas lines, or the dispensers, any of the hanging hardware, dust caps, nozzles, etc. That equipment should be replaced as needed, and we do not need to be notified of that. especially need to be notified of any work that's going to be done on the tanks, and especially if you need to break ground to do that work. I also want may ask to see the maintenance logs of the above repairs and maintenance. May ask for any fuel dispensing reports and vapor recovery compliance test reports. So now moving on to phase one of vapor recovery. This is between the fuel trucks and the storage tanks, whether underground or above ground. And here we see a fuel truck hooked up to an underground storage tank with two lines. One is to deliver the liquid gas into the tank, and the other is to suck out the vapors from the tank into the fuel truck. Kind of a cutaway showing how that happens. Again, liquid fuel delivered from the truck into the tank, and the vapors are pulled out of the tank into the truck. You'll also notice there's a vent attached to the tank. That's a pressure vacuum vent valve. Is there to release pressure in case of an emergency. So for the phase one inspection, we're mostly going to be focused on these little manhole covers with the tank adapters. First one there is called a coaxial phase one system. It's a tube within a tube. An inner tube is for fuel, and the outer tube is to suck out the vapors. This uses one hose, and we do have a few of these still around, but they are being phased out slowly. The one here I do want to note is damaged. It should be more round on the inside, not dented and bent like that. The picture on the bottom is a 2-point phase one system. This uses separate lines each for one for the fuel and one for the vapors. And we have enhanced vapor recovery, which uses additional standards to ensure the equipment is vapor tight. During the phase one inspection, we'll go over and look over the cleanliness of the spill buckets, the vapor and fill caps, make sure they're engaged with those adapters, vapor and fill cap gasket conditions, the fill tube rotation for an EVR system, jack screw kit tightness for an EVR system, vapor poppet functioning, make sure the PV vent valves are installed, and we may use a FLIR OGI camera to look for vapor tightness, and this can see the invisible vapors that are emitted by gasoline. Here are some of the common issues we see with phase one systems. We see a lot of liquid and or gasoline or various other things pooled up in the spill buckets. These should be kept clean and dry at all times. We recommend checking them daily, and especially after every fuel delivery. Vapor caps, often we find not are engaged, or the gaskets are missing or broken. The picture on the top right there's supposed to be a mechanism that goes across that locks the cap on to the tube there, and that's broken. The EVR drop tube swivel, sometimes those can be loose and we can kind of undo them by hand, which shouldn't be done, or they're too tight and seized when they should be able to move. And moving on to the phase two vapor recovery. This is between the storage containers and the end user's vehicle. Here's a cutaway of what that looks like. And this uses tight seals and pressure to draw vapors out of the vehicle and into the storage tanks at the same time as pumping liquid gasoline into the vehicle. I'm ensuring the face seals on the nozzles and the coaxial hoses in good condition are crucial for the system to function. And then for non-phase two stations, I don't have vapor recovery at the dispenser. Modern vehicles have an onboard refueling vapor recovery system, and that captures and reuses vapors from the fuel tank and reduces emissions from the car. These were starting to be required around 2000, and in 2012, the EPA no longer required phase two vapor recovery nationwide and left it up to local jurisdictions to determine if it was needed. For Washoe County, We stopped requiring phase 2 vapor recovery on March 23rd, 2017. Any newly constructed gasoline dispensing facilities or ones undergoing major modifications are required to install an EDR phase 1 system. If phase 2 vapor recovery is still going to be used, it must be maintained properly and abide by all relevant regulations. Here we just have some of the phase 2 equipment with the nozzle, bigger, beefier breakaways, and the big coaxial hose. For phase 2 inspection, all dispensers, we're going to check on them, whether a station has phase 2 vapor recovery or not. And the picture shown there is a phase 1 vapor recovery dispenser. It has a skinny hose, smaller breakaways, and a different type of nozzle. We're checking for leaks from all the fittings, conditions of the hoses, conditions of the breakaways and nozzles, and make sure that all the equipment is orientated and installed correctly. We have a phase 2 vapor recovery issues. Up along the top there, those are all non-phase 2 hoses and dispensers. So they're cracked or kinked, cut through, or there's leaking of gasoline from the fitting there. Along the bottom, those are all phase 2 vapor recovery equipment. See the hose is damaged and worn. You can see through it. That face seal is pretty chewed up. That's not going to form a good seal. And then that breakaway is installed upside down. So it's not really going to be effective that way. Moving on to compliance testing and scheduling. This is something that we often see stations have issues with complying. Please read your permits carefully and check which tests you're required to do and when you're required to do them. The date of the last past compliance test determines when the next test will be due. The facilities are issued the PTOs, the permit operates, not your testing companies. So any enforcement action will be taken against the facility and not the testing companies. So don't rely on them to keep your schedule. Please set your own reminders. And please feel free to contact our office if you have any questions. It's a lot easier if we avoid delays and everybody maintains compliance. So for an EVR phase 1 only system, they're required to do these 4 tests every 3 years. It's a 2-inch water column static pressure decay. A 5-inch test is required for any new system. A static torque test of the rotatable phase 1 adapters, leak rate drop tube test, or of the tube/drain valve assembly, or of tube overfill prevention devices and spill container drain valves, and then a leak rate and cracking pressure test of the PV vent valve. That's that emergency release valve from earlier. For an above ground tank, they're required to annually have a 2-inch water column static pressure performance test and the leak rate and cracking pressure test of the PV vent valve. For phase 2 systems, a balanced phase 2 vapor recovery, all 3 of these tests are required to be done every 3 years. And it's a 2-inch water column static pressure decay test, dynamic back pressure test, and a leak rate and cracking pressure test of the PV vent valve. For an assist phase 2 vapor recovery system, they have the 2-inch water column static pressure decay test and air to liquid volume ratio test. And those 2 need to be done annually for an assist system, and then every 3 years for the leak rate and cracking pressure test. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Alex. Looks like we have one question. Let me try to unmute you, Peter. All right. You see, I tried to unmute you. Are you able to say something? Let me see. Maybe I didn't do that correctly. think you might just need to unmute yourself. If I didn't do that correctly,
Okay,
maybe.
let's try that.
There we
How
go.
about that?
There we
Perfect.
go. I can hear you now. Yeah, thank you, Peter.
Thanks for the presentation. Peter Kruger with the Energy Convenience Association Nevada. Would you go back over that portion early on about the sale of a business and what's required and when? And then if a business changes brands, for example, unbranded Pete's Gas to Shell or Chevron, does that require any reporting of any kind? Thank you.
Sure. I can try to handle that. So if there's any change of ownership, that would be what would require notification to the AQMD. If there's any change of responsible people for the business, we should also be notified for those items when they occur. A change of brand would not require that. If the ownership of the business stayed the same, if there was some LLC or something like that, as long as the ownership is the same, but it changed from Shell to whatever else it would be, that would not require. Hopefully that answers it, but if you'd like me to elaborate more. Yeah.
May I follow up, Peter Kruger again? So is there a reporting, a time period in which a change of ownership must be reported? And if so, if you fall, or if you fall outside that, do you have your permit pulled, or what? Need to understand that a little better.
We can process the change of ownership very quickly because it doesn't require any change to the permit other than updating some administrative information. Really that should be done, as the sale is, at the time of the sale. It should be done, basically right away. We don't have a specific time frame on there, but like I said, we can get those turned around very quickly. But technically, as soon as the permit, as soon as ownership changes, then the permit would be invalid. So it should really be done at the same time.
Okay, so if I, in the big scheme of things, reporting to change of ownership with all that's going on at that period is in a business, especially small businesses, one just another thing. Suppose what I'm trying to find out, or have you tell me, is there a penalty of any sort? Let's suppose I get around to reporting you 6 months after I've actually sold my business or the new owner has taken place. When do the big arm of Northern Nevada Public Health kick in?
We do find these on compliance and inspections. It will usually be just written up as a corrective action. I don't believe we've ever taken enforcement action on somebody that that accidentally did not notify us. We'll write it up and we'll advise for a very quick turnaround to get in a new application because technically the permit would not be valid. We'll usually say, get in your application within 3 business days. That's
I understand. I think
guidance that we provide.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, there's no question that the new owner's got that responsibility, and we just wanted to be sure for our members and others that if there was a drop dead date, I knew what that was. But that answers my question. Good presentation, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Peter, and thank you for your participation. All right, we'll leave it open for any additional questions. I think Alex has our contact information up there. I'm not sure if everybody can see that still on the slide, but if you think of anything, if you ever have any questions, it's always better to ask rather than make any assumptions. Our goal is not to write violations. Our goal is compliance assistance to protect the air quality. So please, if you ever are in doubt about something, if something on your permit is unclear to you, please reach out. Our main phone number is 775-784-7200. It's on your permit to operate. Or AQMD contact us at nnph.org. Send an email to that email and, we'll get it routed to the correct people, whether it be, one of our compliance inspectors or our permitting program. Not seeing anything else in the chat. If anybody else has a question, you could use the raise hand function. we'll leave it open for another minute or two here, and then we'll wrap it up. All right, I'm not really seeing anything. Thank you again, everybody, for your interest and participation. All right, have a great day. Enjoy this nice weather while we've got it. All right, thank you. With that, we'll wrap it up.